Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. I'm Randy Wright, and I'll be your captain on this solo flight special edition of our state-of-the-art radio program. Folks, this will be the vital boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before I may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, what we saw occur on that convention floor in Cleveland, Ohio, yesterday evening proves a couple of points about the current state of the arena of politics in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. First and foremost, it proves that the gutless opposition party, particularly with respect to the detente wing thereof, is diametrically opposed to conservatism. They have been working to destroy grassroots efforts and initiatives to ensure that conservatism remains a vital part of the party platform for election cycles and generations to come. Of course, this should come as no surprise to anyone. That is the reason why the United States of America finds itself in the grips of such blind rage and fury right now as I sit here and speak into this microphone. But there's something more to be said about what we saw with respect to Ted Cruz's speech last night. Ted Cruz did not come out and fully endorse Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump knew this, as he had to pre-approve the text in the speech which Cruz stayed to, even though they are now trying to peddle a revisionist story to claim that Cruz altered the text of the speech to include that vote your conscience line that seems to really have the Lion Branch Trumpidians jumping up and down, hooting and hollering like the bucktooth inbred morons they really are. And folks, I hate to be crass like that, but the kind of behavior that was exhibited on that convention floor yesterday evening, attempting to intimidate Ted Cruz's wife Heidi, is despicable, and it has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. And I'm sick and tired of using kid gloves with these cultists who are hell-bent on pitting American citizen against American citizen. They want to commit a hostile takeover of the Republican Party. Do not expect to have that without a fight, because there are those of us who are committed constitutional compositionists who will never bow down and yield to these sorts of fear-mongering tactics. This is the sort of thing that one expects from a tin-pot dictator, someone like an Adolf Hitler, or a Benito Mussolini, or a Pol Pot, or a Joseph Stalin, or a Mao Zedong. Not the leader of the free world, or at least anyone who's even vying to be leader of the free world. Now, that's not to say that Hillary Clinton isn't a thug in her own right. She is. That's the thing. True constitutionalists are incapable of differentiating or distinguishing between Donald J. Trump and Hillary Rotten Clinton. It's because they are the titular flip side of the same coin. And that's something that we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have been warning about for almost a year now, folks. And yet the Lion Branch Trumpidians continue to refuse to heed the warnings that are near prophetic that both my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, and I have been providing for such a long time. The other thing that we can take away from Ted Cruz's speech last evening is that he is fully committed to defending the natural law tenets that underpin not only our shared United States Constitution, but also our representative Republican form of government. You see, what really made the Lion Branch Trumpidians lose themselves last evening was the fact that he called for someone to vote their conscience. Now, in a surrounding like that of the gutless opposition party, or GOP convention, the Republican National Convention, one would assume that meant for the Republican nominee. But it shouldn't be that we have to just move lockstep in support and grovel at the feet at the anointed one in order to be supported. And that's a major disconnect that I'm finding with respect to the current state of affairs in American polity. There is just this exorbitant push to have the Republican Party become center down, top down, centralized, like that of the Democrat Party. I thought the entire reason that we were dedicated to what we were was the same type of individualism that was a central pillar and is a central pillar to a free system of governance. That really is not that difficult to figure out. You don't need a rocket surgeon to comprehend that, really. We don't need to go and put in a special call to Dr. Ben I'm a Victim Carson. What we saw on that convention floor last night is an attempt to turn the Republican Party into that frothing at the mouth workers' party that Trump claimed that he wanted to transform it to some months ago. Remember that the Nazi Party was an acronym. Nazi stood for the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Well, that's where we are in 2016 in the United States of America. We are embracing the very sort of fascism that our forebearers, our grandparents, or in some cases our parents, fought against 70 years ago. Well, enough is enough. We do not need to tolerate this sort of bedlam and hooliganism within the rank and file of the Republican Party. We are better than that. We have always been better than that. And it is just shocking to see that we are embracing such horrific notions in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. Now, I know that there are going to be many that disagree with the words that I'm conveying as I sit here and speak into this microphone. But truth be told, take a step back, divorce yourselves from your emotions, and think about this logically. If you look at the speech that Cruz gave, he starts it off by congratulating the New York billionaire, businessman, real estate tycoon, and all-around vulgarian, Donald J. Trump, also known as John Barron and also known as John Miller, for his victory. That was a gracious act. That showed that Cruz was being deferential. But that's not enough for the Lion Branch Trumpidians. No, they want everyone to grovel at the feet at the anointed orange one. Well, I'm not going to do that, and Ted Cruz further reiterated today that he himself is not going to do that he's not going to be a lapdog for the Trump train. And that's what we expect from our leaders. We expect them to be able to stand up to a movement that is pushing for a tyranny of false unity. If there is one thing that we have oft-times reiterated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, it's that the American people are about being able to stand up for what they believe is right. We see that we now want to turn to some messianic figure, some authoritarian-style dictator to figure out how to act. We want to be told what to do. Why? That is essentially un-American. It is quintessentially un-American. If we had that mindset during the American War for Independence, we would have never won our independence. We would still be a colony of Great Britain. No, we had the conviction of courage, the caliber of character to stand up for what we believed was right. And what we believed was right has given us the longest contiguous or uninterrupted running constitutional document in the entire course of human events. It's not something you just wipe under the rug. It's not something that you turn your back on and ignore. Why? Because some candidate happens to say something that's brash, braggadocio, and vulgar? What happened to common decency? What happened to civil discourse in the United States of America? Have we really fallen so far that we cannot allow people to vote their conscience? Why has that become such a vilified thing? Why is that so evil? And no, don't just give me fear-mongering responses about Hillary Rotten Clinton, because that is a faulty premise, as we've already discussed. You know, one of the things that we said all throughout the primary process was that the only litmus test that matters and is applicable in determining whether or not a candidate is viable and is even eligible to wield the reins of political power in this nation, to hold the highest office in the land, is to see how they relate to the Constitution, how they will be deferential to the Constitution, and how they will restore the nation back to strict adherence to the clear and concise language contained within its four corners. Folks, we're not going to see any of that from Donald Trump, but we did see it from Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Yet Trump, who already knew what the language in the speech was going to say, already knew days before that Cruz would not give him an explicit endorsement, and why should he, after the way that Trump so ruthlessly maligned his wife Heidi and maligned his father with this bovine excrement that he was somehow involved with the assassination of JFK, spare me. Why should that receive an inherent endorsement? But Cruz gave him a gift. And I saw this in one of the comment sections of a social media site, in which, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have it directly in front of me, but it clearly said, that Cruz gave Trump a gift. He gave him the gift of saying that he had won the primary, that we need party unity, that we don't want Hillary Rotten Clinton, and that we must vote our conscience. Trump could have spun that to be in his best interest, but no, Trump can't do that. Trump doesn't have any policy specifics, doesn't hold any true policy positions which are consistent with conservative values. No, Trump finds that it's far easier to attack members of his own party. I've never seen anything like this. I have never once seen anything like this in a free country like that of the United States, or within my lifetime, albeit as short as it is. This requires that we take a step back and examine just exactly who it is we actually nominated to be our candidate for the highest office in the land. We can't just sit back and allow there to be threats and intimidations which have become the hallmark of the Trump train all throughout this disastrous 2016 presidential election cycle. We have to rise up above the fray. We have to show that we are Americans. Damn it, this is our country. But that's not how Trump's acting. Trump has decided that he wants to use Saul Alinsky tactics to double down on them, because if you recall, Trump has on repeated occasions said it's not the Conservative Party, it's the Republican Party, and he doesn't want full party unity. He would rather reach out to disenfranchised, nerd-faced, boy me Sanders voters, a self-avowed socialist. Folks, as we have so oft-times reiterated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, there cannot be socialism in line with the supreme law of the land. Because if you recall, the supreme law of the land, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2 of our Constitution, is the Constitution. And we all know that the mafioso quafioso stated in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media back in 2012 that he hadn't once read the Constitution all the way through from cover to cover because he didn't see any inherent or intrinsic value in doing so. Well, that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes because that is the same mantra that is spun by the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists who are hell-bent on utterly annihilating the United States of America both as a nation and as a people. I wish I had words of solace to provide as I sit here and speak into this microphone conveying this message unto you. But there are no words of solace when we see that the Republican Party, the home of the conservative movement for generations, has decided to turn its back on the conservative movement. And the same goes for the alleged commensurate and punditry. People like Laura Ingraham, who gave a just stupid speech last night, and who is going on a vitriolic attack on the Texas senator. You see, Cruz lived up to Reagan's 11th commandment. Thou shalt not attack thy fellow Republicans. But that was certainly not the case on the part of the Trump camp. No, they had to be the brash vulgarians, just like their master. Their master sent rabble-rousers out into the convention floor to give marching orders for people to boo Cruz. But Cruz didn't say anything negative about Trump. He didn't say that you shouldn't vote against Trump or even that you should vote for Trump. You should vote your conscience. That's what voting in the United States of America and a free representative Republican form of government has always been about. And to deny that, to try and just sweep that under the rug, is telling about exactly who our political foes are. And yes, they are political foes. Cruz reached out the olive branch and called for party unity not once but twice. And it was the Lion Branch Trumpidians that threw that in our face. It was the Lion Branch Trumpidians that acted like a bunch of fascistic thugs. I'm sorry, but there is no way that I can support this sort of hostile takeover of the Republican Party. There is no way that I will allow these frothing at the mouth, hardly different, in fact, not different at all from the Fabian socialists, from irreparably and permanently and fundamentally redefining conservatism in this country. They've already done it with classical liberalism. They've bastardized that term with the dark and twisted game of semantics that they always love to play, something that we have warned about on this program going back to the earliest days. And that is annoying. It's annoying. The reason it is because it shows that they have no love for our country, that they have no love for the rule of law, that they would just be a secondary attempt to continue the ridiculous and ludicrous notions of the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists. Well, enough is enough. We must get back to a modicum of sanity in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and community of popular sovereigns of ours, if we are ever to return to the path to prosperity. But we all know that that's not what they care about. We all know that they want to just lambaste people, to try and humiliate people. Well, I'm sick and tired of it, just as I am sure the vast majority of our cherished listening passengers and audience members are as well. But I have a clip here from Cruz's speech showing just exactly how ridiculous the attacks on Cruz were, how they were sitting there doing chants for Trump, just in rude fashion, even though Cruz wasn't saying anything negative about the mafioso quafioso. And here we go.
We will be able to say, freedom matters, and I was part of something beautiful. The case we have to make to the American people, the case each person in this room has to make to the American people, is to commit to each of them that we will defend freedom and be faithful to the Constitution. We will unite the party, we will unite the country by standing together for shared values, by standing for liberty. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the United States of America.
You see, right there, they don't like God bless America. They don't like the idea of having unity. They don't like the idea of being liberty-loving. They are just like the Democrats. That is what that message sent to me from the booing, the heckling, all of that crap coming from the mafioso quafioso. And unless and until we begin to really root this out from our party, we are never going to win on a national level. Folks, I hate to be this way, but they have pushed us to this. We have warned that they had no idea what real anger was, that they wouldn't understand it until they finally felt the true righteous indignation of constitutional compositionists in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. This is intolerable. This is unacceptable. What they are trying to force upon us has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. Trump may be a greatly businessman that's gone bankrupt more times than he'd care to admit. Trump might be a great deal maker, although he's really not. What it comes down to is this man is unacceptable for America. This man goes against my conscience. And I will follow what Ted Cruz said there and vote my conscience come November. But you all knew that. You all knew that we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, said that it is not our place to tell someone how to exercise their fundamental and inalienable God-given right to vote, just as it is not anyone else's place to tell us how to do so. But that doesn't work for the Lion Branch Trumpidians. That's too bigly for them to understand. Their crown-covered construction paper doesn't make up for the brain cells they've lost from eating glue. You know, politics has always been a rough and tumble world. It has always been an adversarial field. But you know what it really shows? It shows that these Lion Branch Trumpidians have a deep-seated hatred of a representative Republican form of government. They showed that in the way that they conducted themselves on the first night of the National Convention there in Cleveland by refusing there to be a roll call vote on the rules. They showed that by continuing to push to have open primaries, which in and of itself is a travesty and goes against everything that we hold near and dear in this once thriving and flourishing representative Republican form of government. But why? Why is it that we have fallen to such a degree and fallen to such a place in this country that we no longer want to allow people to vote their conscience? That should be sending up red flags and sounding off alarm bells for every decent, hard-working, red-blooded American citizen from coast to coast and border to border. Why? Because what they are saying is you no longer have the ability to think for yourself. You no longer have the ability to matter for your own self. That goes against the very idea of a free, representative Republican form of government, and I have had it. I have had it with these little Trump-talitarians trying to tell us how to live our lives, trying to be just as micromanaging and intrusive as the frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialists who are hell-bent on the utter annihilation of the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people. If they cannot accept what Cruz was giving them, which was a gift, he was giving him the keys to the presidency, then they don't deserve to have it. Nor do they deserve to have my vote. But I've explained this before, just as my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, has explained this before, just as our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, has explained this before. Again, it's not a difficult concept. You don't need a rocket surgeon like Dr. Ben I'm a Victim Carson to figure this out. But apparently the Lion Branch Trumpidians who suffer from acute ostrich syndrome, instead of shoving their heads in the sand, they're shoving it up their posteriors, don't want to know that. They don't want to know the truth. They just want to blame and attack anyone because it can never be the fault of their fearless leader or of their own thuggish desires. Enough. Enough with this childlike antic. Enough of being schoolyard bullies. Who the hell do you think you are to be able to just go out and intimidate people for saying something that they happen to disagree with you? That doesn't happen to fall in with your twisted views right now? Grow up. Seriously, grow the F up. Nobody needs to cater to your little delicate feelings there. And yes, that's not politically correct, but guess what? We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have declared war on that cancerous doctrine, along with its twin cancerous doctrine of moral relativism. Hillary Clinton is not acceptable. But after what I saw on that convention floor in Cleveland last night, neither is Donald Trump. Donald Trump was unacceptable before. He's now wholly unacceptable. He is now one that we will never stop resisting. Because what he is trying to do is fundamentally transform conservatism to irreparably harm it, to try and make us a top-down governmental country, which we never were, and that we will, God willing, never be. That stands diametrically opposed to the natural law tenets that underpin our shared United States Constitution and our representative Republican form of government. That is just the truth. There is no way to get around that. There is no way to just sit there and say what Trump is doing there is in line with how a free society and government works. I'm sorry. There just is no way for that to be the case. No way at all. And let's face the truth. Attacking Ted Cruz's family the way that Trump did is unacceptable. Attacking his wife and claiming that his father was some part of the assassination of JFK, that goes beyond common decency. That goes beyond the pale. It shows that Trump is willing to use the Saul Alinsky tactics that we loathe and despise from the Barack Hussein Obama regime. Enough is enough. There has to come a point where civil discourse still means something in the United States. There has to be an ability to agree to disagree. And the fact that we are not seeing that within this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours should be alarming to everyone. It's as we have so oft times reiterated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that in this country, we know that our republic is greater than the sum of its parts, that there is a greater good that we should all strive for in the United States. But Trump doesn't believe that. Trump is just as much a divider as Obama. And the Lion Branch Trumpidians are hardly different than the cult-like worshippers of Obama during the 2008 and again 2012 elections. Their leader can do no wrong, their leader can make no mistake, and it's always somebody else's fault. Well, that's just childish. That's not realistic. That's certainly un-American. We have got to become serious about what really matters in this country. And what really matters in this country is the very problem that is at the root of every calamity that currently faces us, both as a nation and as a people. And that, as we have so often oftentimes said, is this distance from the Constitution, this departure from the rule of law. And Trump is pushing for that. Remember that Trump even went out in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and said that he could go out onto 5th Street or 5th Avenue and shoot someone and he wouldn't lose a single supporter. Well, that's certainly what we saw on display last evening. That's certainly what we saw on display. And shame on all of these people who are attempting to attack Cruz for doing the principled thing and standing up for the honor of his family. Think back to one of the things that we have so oftentimes said here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. That the natural law tenets, the natural order of things form the foundation and basis of this representative republic of ours. And that the fundamental building block of society, of all society, is the nuclear family. That means that if you wantonly attack someone's family, as Trump has, in deleterious fashion, like some fiend, You don't deserve support. It used to be that we had a code of conduct in this society, but it appears that we have fast abandoned that we have long since abandoned that, if we can allow someone like the orange-faced, Cheeto-munching moron to become our representative? How can he represent the will of the American people when he acts like a 4-year-old? Schoolyard bullies were terrible on the schoolyard. They make even worse national leaders. This sort of authoritarianism goes against the grain and fiber of what it means to be an American citizen. And that should resonate with every true American citizen. Now, I'm not questioning their patriotism. Yes, there are those who follow Trump just because of fear for Hillary. That's fine. Vote however you want. I'll disagree with your choice, but I'm not going to tell you how to vote, and I'm not going to lambaste you for voting for that man. Just as I'm not going to lambaste anyone who goes out and votes for a third-party candidate. But it seems that is a one-way street. It seems that the olive branch is always a one-way street with these Lion Branch Trumpidians. They are the ones that are seeking to fundamentally alter what it means to be a conservative American. Don't think that this will last. Don't think that you can win with hatred and vitriol. It does not work. It never has. It's only detrimental. It's only deleterious. It's only harmful to what unifies us as a people. And this is, again, going back to how the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media try and say that Trump is a nationalist. How can he be a nationalist when he doesn't find any value in the only thing that defines us as a nation and a people? Our shared Constitution. I suppose what I find most tragic about all of this is that we have seemingly lost sanity in this country. We have lost the ability to see that it is the Constitution that unites us. Nothing else, just the Constitution. And I know that there are those who are in the rank and file of the Lion Branch Trumpidians who are going to sit there and say that the Constitution is some quaint and antiquated document, that we shouldn't have strict adherence to the clear and concise language contained within its four corners at all levels of government. Well, how is that going to work? You're going to have to completely do away with the Constitution. You are going to have to completely redefine the nation. And I'm sorry, but the characteristics exhibited by the mafioso, quaffwaffler himself are not in line with a free, representative republic based on tenets of federalism and the natural law. It really is that simple. It really is that black and white. This is why we say that the Constitution is not a living document. Its interpretation was set in stone at the Constitutional Convention and upon its ratification. The Ninth Amendment clearly states that you cannot interpret the Constitution because that would be using the Constitution to infringe upon rights of others. There is a way to deal with those who exercise their rights in a reckless manner that infringes upon the fundamental and inalienable God-given rights of their fellow popular sovereign individuals. And that is through due process under the law. The Constitution provides for that. But what we see is Trump has jumped on board in the past, and something we've harped on, with the no fly, no buy, or we cry, this, fiasco. That if you're on that no-fly list that has no due process, we can strip and deprive you of your fundamental and inalienable right to keep and bear firearms, your fundamental and inalienable right to acquire personal property. No. That is wrong. That is the same sort of deleterious activity and thought pattern that made our founding fathers rise up in revolt against the centralized authority of the Crown of England. How much have we forgotten thanks to the historical revisionists who now infiltrate and infest our institutions of education from coast to coast and border to border in America. It shows that there are so many who are willing to just react to a knee-jerk emotional response without thinking things through. And of course, that's the major problem with Trump. He never thinks about what he's saying. Quite frankly, you have to have a mind, not a harebrain, to be able to think things through. And I think he's wholly incapable of that. And what we also know is that for the vast majority of his 70 years spent on God's green earth, Donald J. Trump has only ever been about Donald J. Trump. He has funded the most god-awful, frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists, such as Hillary Clinton, and then the mayor of governor of Virginia, Tim Geithner. Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe is a huge violator of the Constitution, and yet Trump had supported him as late as 2014. As late as 2014. And recall, all of those who think that Trump is great because he's going to build a wall, something that he took from Texas Senator Ted Cruz's position, by the way, back in 2012. He said that Romney's self-deportation of illegal aliens by enforcing the laws that are already on the books was too tough, that was mean-spirited, that was cold-hearted, that was not American. Trump, go to hell. You have shown time and again that you have no love for the rule of law in the United States of America. You have shown a shocking lack of understanding of the way that our constitutionally endowed representative republic is supposed to work, and you are just as dangerous as Hillary Rotten Clinton. Maybe that's why you have been such good buddies with her for so long. No one can forget the photograph of him there yucking it up with Billy Bob Clinton and Madam Clinton at his third wedding to Malaria, the Czech thumper. You can't make that kind of imagery up. That kind of imagery tells me that he keeps bad company, that he has poor judgment when it comes to the caliber and quality and character of the people that he chooses to associate with. Now, if that's backwards of me, I don't care. It's a good indicator on how people will act. And certainly, Trump's own statements in the past indict him as not being a conservative. And yet, it's okay to crowd around Heidi Cruz and threaten her so that she needs a guard to leave the convention floor? This is not some totalitarian excrement hole. This is the United States of America, and we do not tolerate nor do we accept that sort of outlandish behavior. It goes against all that we hold near and dear in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And the fact that the Lion Branch Trumpidians can defend this, or simply attack Cruz and say that making statements about upholding the Constitution was at the improper time and place, go to hell. Because you know what that says? That means that you think that the Constitution should just be swept under the rug, that we should just accept some sort of Trumptalitarian dictator. No. Trump represents all of the vile characteristics that our founding fathers sought to prevent with the Constitution. He would ignore the separations of power. He's already said as much, that he would continue the extra-constitutional use and abuse of executive order and privilege to work around Congress if they didn't give him exactly what he wanted. He's already said that everything is negotiable. Well, no, Trumpy. Our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights, by their very nature, are non-negotiable. They're non-delegable. They should never be placed upon the bargaining table. I know that's a bit too bigly for you, so let me put it this way. Hey, Trumpy, those things are not for sale. Just move your wig a little bit, because you have become the new Whig Party, and try and soak in the reality of the words that I am conveying to you here as I sit here and speak into this microphone. My love for the Constitution is far, far greater than any loyalty to any political party. A political party is just a tool so that like-minded individuals can more easily congregate together so that they might petition the government for a redress of grievances through proper governments, through proper leadership. But I don't see proper leadership coming from the mouth of the mafioso quafioso. I don't see true leadership being espoused by wrangling up rabble-rousers to boo at a speech when someone says, vote your conscience. Voting your conscience is quintessentially an American value. What the hell does Trump have against that? Oh, it's his man-child ego. It's because deep down in his heart, he is a loser. That's right, folks. Donald J. Trump is a loser. He was a loser when he lost the Taj Mahal there in Atlantic City. He was a loser when he lost in his case trying to infringe upon the Fifth Amendment prohibition against an unlawful taking without just compensation. In other words, abusing the power of eminent domain for private gain, which it was never intended to be used for. The Kello case was a disaster, an example of the Supreme Court becoming a secondary legislature, which it was never intended to be. That shows, once again, that the pattern that we see ad nauseum, repetitively in the United States, is that when we have these sorts of problems, when we have reasons to object to the way a candidate or a particular leader is acting, it's always attached to a departure from the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of the supreme law of the land or the United States Constitution. I don't understand why this is such a difficult concept for the Lion Branch Trumpidians to get through their thick skulls. We are not a nobility. We are not an aristocracy. We do not demand that people bow down and grovel at the feet of those who would have us give up our freedom. That's really, literally what this comes down to, folks. Trump wants us to give up our liberty and our freedom and kiss the ring of his imperial smally hand. Because they surely are not proportional to the rest of his body. And I know that the loser struggles with that. I know that the loser doesn't like it when people bring that up. Again, showing that his skin is far too thin to ever be entrusted with the reins of political power in this country. Think back to one of the other things Cruz had said during the primary process, where he said that people should be concerned about Trump because if he were president, we might wake up one day and find that he's nuked Denmark because they somehow insulted or ruffled his little coif there, the porcupine needles on that bleached coif that he wears atop his unsavory head. This 2016 presidential election cycle has been the most vicious, vile, personalized, and just destructive of living memory. I have never seen anything like it throughout my short time on God's green earth. And it's frightening to see what's happening. It's frightening to see that so many people who claim to be principled conservatives, who vowed they would never support anyone who was in cahoots with that detente wing of the gutless opposition party that is attempting to dismantle conservatism, just sell their souls and join the quote-unquote Trump train. And I'm pointing a finger once again at Rush Limbaugh, the supposed king of conservative punditry. I used to really like you, Rush. I used to really look up to you. I cheered for you. I was an apologist for you. No more. By attacking Ted Cruz for doing what he thought was right, you have shown your true colors. You have shown that you only care about being able to have access, being able to have interviews with the mafioso quafioso, to play golf with him. You know what, Rush? The Constitution of the United States of America is far more important than that damn game of golf. Sorry, just is. And I'm sorry that you seem incapable of understanding the true righteous indignation of constitutional compositionists who are sick and tired of candidates on either side of the political aisle coming forth and attempting to trample upon our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. Because what we are seeing in Washington, D.C. today is an unacceptable level and amount of corruption. No, we should never have to bow down to that. We should never have to accept that in a vibrant republic like that of the United States of America. But you know what we have to be on top of that? We have to be a virtuous republic. In other words, we have to have and foster a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution and thereby our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. We cannot just simply give it away, and that means that we oppose anyone who takes a position that is contrary to the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of the Constitution, irrespective of whether they have an R or a D after their name. That's where we are. You know, Sean Hannity said that he would never support anyone who went against conservative values, yet he has been the loudest cheerleader, the first to fall on his knees for the mafioso quafioso. You know, one of the things that we have oft-times reiterated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, is that we have to be able to hold others accountable and ourselves accountable. And I'm going to congratulate Steve Deese out of Iowa for coming out and admitting that he was wrong in saying that Cruz shouldn't have spoken at the convention last evening. That takes a lot of guts, and I applaud him for doing that. He showed that he was a grown-up. He showed that he has what it takes to be a dignified person with principles, the very sorts of things that we once valued in America. But with the bizarre ascendancy of the New York vulgarian, we see that that has steadily been swept under the rug, that there is this movement in the United States to ignore that. And again, it's just in line with everything that the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftist disgusting. It truly, really is disgusting. The idea that we are going to hand the reins of political power to someone who is egomaniacal just seems counterproductive. It really does seem counterproductive in that it allows a person to just pull their personal whims over not only the political party, but our entire system of polity. We can't afford that. We can ill afford that right now, particularly when the United States of America has already suffered through two disastrous terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime, which has been an egotistical narcissist running ramshod over our Constitution. And that brings me back to one of the complaints that the Lion Branch Trumpidians, or at least a great many of the ones that I have known, try and put forth with the Constitution. When they try and say that it's some quaint, antiquated document that is ill-equipped to handle the problems of a fast-paced modern life like the one that we lead and live in now. Well, no. You see, what's wrong with that is the Constitution is a great social contract or compact. In fact, it's the greatest one ever devised by the hands of man, yet divinely inspired by providence above. And being a contract, it means that we, the people, the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, are contractually obligated, in other words, duty-bound, to proactively maintain and safeguard our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. Yes, the Constitution protects those things, but it requires that we protect the Constitution. Liberty can be fickle like that. Liberty requires that we never be wary. They don't have to worry about being right all the time, whereas we do. But because of the natural order of things, or the natural law, and because of our natural inclination in our capacity as popular sovereigns, we will never give up on our rights. We will never stop standing for what is intrinsically valuable about the United States of America. And that is our shared Constitution. That is the fundamental and inalienable God-given rights that we all enjoy by right of birth or naturalization. That's where we are, folks. And to think that now that we are in this stage of the election cycle, that we would get boos for saying that we will never stop standing up for liberty, for conservative principles, with that is now bad timing? What the hell? What the hell? And I don't mean to be crass, folks, but it is absolutely ludicrous that that would elicit boos just because we're not going to support the mafioso quafioso? Cruz didn't tell you not to go out and vote for him. What the hell is wrong with you? Folks, I'm doing my best not to lose my temper here. I'm doing my best to be the consummate professional that I always have been, to provide you with this indelible yet pure sense of enlightenment that we always seek to provide you here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. But Trump and his childish schoolyard antics make that exceedingly difficult. He makes that task nearly impossible. But what's really, truly, flabbergastingly frustrating with respect to Donald J. Trump and the way that he conducts himself and his behavior, it's that he goes along with the Saul Alinsky tactics that have been peddled by the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists and their allies, both the historical revisionists and the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. He personalizes the attacks. He doesn't go on principle. He doesn't go on the law. We still have no idea how he would rule, other than from past statements, which the Lion Branch Trumpidians tell us, oh, he has certainly changed from that time. Based on the behavior exhibited last night and on the fact that Paul Manafort and Roger Stone were pushing for people to go out and whip up booing when they knew what was going to be in that speech and they pre-approved what was going to be in that speech. It shows that they are the self-righteous thugs that we have warned that they have been going back almost a year now. Folks, it's there, clear as day, for anyone to see who is looking at this in an objective fashion. But objectivity, that is something that has little to no meaning to the frothing at the mouth Lion Branch Trumpidians. And I'm sad to see that the United States of America has come to such a position. No, I'm not butthurt, as the damn Lion Branch Trumpidians would say. I'm not even attempting to block Trump so much as I am flabbergasted, just amazed that American citizens would tolerate this sort of chicanery, that those whom I've held with high esteem and regard in the past, very near and dear friends to me, could be bamboozled by the mafioso quafioso. Are you really that afraid of Hillary that you are willing to allow Hillary's top donor to become the leader of the Republican Party? If that's the case, I pity you. I pity you because it means that you have so little faith in the natural law, that very law that is etched in our hearts by our Creator, the God of nature. I'm not going to tell you to not go and vote for Trump. If that is your inclination and if that is your prerogative, go ahead and knock yourself out. But don't you dare come here and attack me. Don't you dare try and lay the blame for any loss on the part of the mafioso quafioso at our feet. Because that means you are refusing to accept accountability for your own actions. We are accepting accountability for our actions. I'll come out and say it right now. The Branch Trumpidians are going to do their utmost to try and unseat Ted Cruz in 2018. And I will also say this right now. I'm accepting accountability in saying that I will be there to resist them. We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, will never back down from our status as the new resistance. And we have to be the new resistance when we see that that is the sort of chicanery that is being tolerated in the Republican Party now. This is why we have advocated for the creation of the constitutional compositionist movement. We have to have something that cannot be just attacked the way that the Lion Branch Trumpidians have attacked the Republican Party. We have to have a system that cannot be perverted by these Saul Alinsky Fabian socialist-style tactics that are designed to pit American citizen against American citizen so that we lose sight of the all-important matters that face this nation. Again, when looking back at the father of our country, George Washington's farewell address from the office of President of the United States, he warned about factionalization. He warned that such factionalization would cause us to lose the sight of the one precious unifying truth about the American citizen. And that is this: we are all unified in our allegiance to the Constitution, to that sacred document which is the greatest birthright of any people on the face of the planet. And yet, we see that other than Ted Cruz, none of the speakers during the RNC there at Cleveland, Ohio, mentioned strictly adhering to the Constitution. None of the speakers there were advocating a control on this out-of-control government and a reining in of this rogue and tyrannical overreach that has become the hallmark of modern governance in the United States of America. That should worry all of us. It should worry all of us that they are trying to say that we just need to be like Europe, or that we need to be like the Democrats. That's the last thing that we need to be. That is the last thing that this country can afford. Yet here we are. In the election cycle that was ours to win, we have put up a Trumptalitarian, throwing quaff-like insults, picking it from each fiber of that porcupine pelt that he has tied and affixed atop his head, and disregarding all those things that have propelled the United States of America to such lofty heights in our relatively brief yet illustrious history. It would be a laughable joke if the consequences weren't so vital, if the consequences weren't so dire. Folks, what last night really proved, and indeed what that entire Republican National Convention proved, is that we are in a fight for the soul of this nation. That presupposes any other battle. That presupposes the battle for the Supreme Court. That presupposes the battle for keeping Hillary out. Even though Hillary will be an unmitigated disaster, we at least know what she will do. We know how to combat her. We have a chance to combat her. But that's not going to be the case if the mafioso quafioso manages to get his little stubby fingers around the reins of political power in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. Because the detente wing, which has already shown a grotesque willingness to ally themselves with him to silence the voice of those delegates who were there, not for Trump, but had been voted on for other candidates, to silence their voice, they're not going to stand up to him. And let's stop and think about that for a moment again, folks. When I say that they were there silencing the vote and voices of those delegates who were elected not to be bound to Trump for the Rules Committee, The United States of America, as we have so oft times reiterated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, is not a democracy. A democracy would allow the voices of those delegates to be ignored, to be swept under the rug, because we wouldn't recognize their rights. But the United States of America is a representative republic. Recall the question that was asked to Benjamin Franklin by that brave, stout young woman in the immediate aftermath of the Constitutional Convention. Mr. Franklin, what have you given us? And his prophetic response, a republic if you can keep it. And keeping on line with what Franklin was saying, the way that Franklin defined democracy speaks volumes about what we saw on that convention floor in Cleveland for these 3 days. And that was this. In a democracy, you have 2 wolves and 1 sheep voting for what's for dinner. The sheep is going to lose every time. There is your tyranny of the majority, a tyranny of a false unity. Because let's face it, the rules had been rigged in 2012 to assure that the primary process would be fast so that we could once again just have some sort of coronation for some detestable candidate. That backfired. That backfired. It shows you that the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, has done everything in its power to go against the will of the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty, we the people. And it's a disgusting state of affairs that we see that this man is now the titular head of the Republican Party, and that they used Gestapo-like tactics to put that in to try and crowd out that Utah delegate around the bathroom and threatening her life. Again, this is the United States of America, not some totalitarian hellhole. When did this become acceptable? When did this become the new norm? Because I wholeheartedly reject it, just as I am sure you, our cherished listening passengers and audience members, reject it as well. You don't need strong-arm tactics. As the way that the reporting was going, he already had the votes for it. There's no need to engage in this sort of trumpery. And yes, trumpery, flashy, vulgar, and meaningless. It's a con artist. Remember, we've said that Trump is the fool's gold candidate. We had a diamond in the rough, yet we chose fool's gold. We chose, cubic zirconium instead of a diamond. And because we must be held accountable for our actions, if this continues, I do not have a good feeling about November. Not for me personally. I know that there have been those who have decided that it's cutesy to go out and do the death threats, to threaten violent and severe bodily harm to me, to my family, to my loved ones. I know that they have threatened my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. I know that they've threatened my first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, just as they threatened that delegate on the convention floor, just as they attempted to threaten Heidi Cruz last evening. It's not going to fly. It's not going to work. I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to tolerate it. No true red-blooded American citizen should ever tolerate that. Because the United States of America is a nation of laws, not of men. I know that the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media have forgotten that. I know that the Lion Branch Trumpidians have forgotten that, but God damn it, that is what we are. And forgive me for getting as angry as I am, but this is our country. And it is not theirs to do that with. It is not their country to run ramshot over. We should not have a tyranny of a majority because as a representative republic, we recognize and defend the rights of the sovereign individual. That means that delegates that were elected and were sent there for other candidates should still have a voice. But what the RNC, The Republican National Committee essentially said there in carte blanche blanket statement was that no, we are no longer a republic. We are just going to run ranchad over everything that matters in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours to become the other party, to become the gutless opposition party. And that is what they are. There is no denying that. There can be no denying that they are not standing true to our values. And I'm sick and tired of it. Just as you should be as well. We all should be sick and tired of this sort of untenable, unacceptable scenario. And you know, folks, there's another aspect that I want to discuss here, something that I've heard the Lion Branch Trumpidians reiterate ad nauseum to the point that it is nauseating. And that's this claim that Trump has, or not Trump, but Cruz has violated his pledge. You know, the pledge that Rinse and Repeatus required everybody to sign saying that they would support the party. First and foremost, the language of the speech that Cruz delivered last night was very supportive of the party. No, the individual does not have to endorse the candidate. And oh, by the way, back in March, Trump said, according to the New York Times, that he wasn't going to honor the pledge should anyone else become the gutless opposition party nominee. So, this idea that somehow we ought to hold Cruz accountable for not holding up to a pledge that was rendered null and void when Trump claimed that he wasn't going to follow it? No. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. That is just the simple facts of life. That is just the reality of it. But you see, again, it's this same type of double standard that we see with respect to the Lion Branch Trumpidians that is so similar to those of the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists who are hell-bent on the utter annihilation of the American nation and people. Why do we want to embrace such similar tactics? And guess what, folks? If the shoe was on the other foot, I can already hear the shrill voices of the Lion Branch Trumpidians, the trumpeteers, in the back of my head saying, Randy, you're a hypocrite. You would say that we should come behind Cruz. No. I would say that I thought you were wrong. I would say that I thought you were misguided. But you're free to vote your conscience. That is one thing that we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have always been dedicated to. We will never betray that because that is what it means to be quintessentially American. That is what it means to have a deep love and reverence for the supreme law of the land, which is none other than our shared United States Constitution. I'm not saying that as some flavor of the week. I'm not saying that to belittle your views. You see, that's the difference. Civil discourse. We can have civil discourse, but you don't want to. You, the Lion Branch Trumpidians, have gone out of your way to adopt the vulgar style of your hair lord. Well, I don't want a hair lord. I want a president. I want a statesman. I want someone who is willing to allow the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people, to stand up and do what's right, to remove the chains and shackles of governmental tyranny, bondage, and servitude. I know that's a little difficult for Trump to figure out. I know it's a bit too bigly for him. But we have broken it down time and again on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, so that he could understand it. And I'm going to do it again. Folks, we all know that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Now, Trump, let me focus this one specifically for you so that it can get through that empty skull of yours, that harebrain of yours. The Constitution is the bigliest, greatest, hugest law. It is the law of the land. You must follow the law of the land because it is so great, bigly, and huge. Yes, it's so huge, your smally hands, your stubby fingers can't grasp it. apparently your mind can't either. That bigly beautiful brain that you say you're going to consult in your capacity as President of the United States of America, should by some fluke or cruel twist of fate you manage to secure the reins of political power in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. You see, you're no different than Hillary Clinton in that regard. And I know this is what irritates the Lion Branch Trumpidians so much. Yet I thought that one of the accolades that they kept reiterating all throughout the primary process and season was that they were supporting Donald J. Trump because he was a straight shooter, that he called it just as it was. No, he doesn't do that because he's consistently inconsistent. Look at the stance he took in the so-called gender-neutral bathroom issue. Again, you have to take everything that he has done into consideration. You must look at it within the totality of the circumstances, because that is how you gauge the character of a man, or, in this case, the lack thereof. There can be no question that what we see with Trump is an apparent and glaring lack of character. He is not fit to be leader. Neither is Hillary Clinton. But what is the most immediate threat? The one that will put conservatism into hibernation, like Herbert Hoover did for 40 some odd plus years? Or something that we can resist? Something that, yes, it will be difficult to resist, particularly given the current state of the gutless opposition party, but you know what? It can be resisted. Hillary can be resisted. And you know how we're going to do that? By being more proactive than we have ever been, by holding the feet of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, to the fire, saying, we will no longer allow your little antics to go forth unchecked and unchallenged. You are the ones that brought about this disastrous result. You are the ones that fabricated this untenable and unacceptable precarious position and situation that we find ourselves in right now, right here, as I speak into this microphone and convey this message unto our cherished listening passengers and audience members. That is a simple reality. That is a self-evident truth. And I know that that's something that the Lion Branch Trumpidians and their fearless leader, the mafioso Quafioso, have such difficulty wrapping their minds around. But it shouldn't be. Again, you really don't need a rocket surgeon to figure this out. You don't have to go wake up poor little Dr. Ben I'm a Victim Carson. Let him slumber on in the self-delusion that he has shrouded himself with. We have got to really understand what it is that makes America great. You see, my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, and I have so oft times reiterated on previous episodes that America has never ceased being great, because the Constitution is still in place, because we, the people, are still the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this republic. But just for argument's sake, I'm going to again make this same argument that I've made before. Let's just say, okay, fine, we will buy your shallow, hollow, empty, meaningless platitude that America has somehow ceased being great. How do you make America great when you don't know what made it great in the first place? How do you make America great when your fearless leader has gone in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and said that he has not once read from corner to corner and cover to cover the Constitution, that very thing that has made us great? If you don't know what that is, if you don't know what the proper tenets of federalism is, just as surely Trump does not, just look at the stance that he took with respect to the land grab by the federal government in our westerlymost states, then how do you make America great? Because you don't know what makes America great. You don't know what it is that unifies us. It's like that point that I made earlier in today's Solo Flight special about Trump sitting there and not really adhering to the law at all, not really being for a republic. And therefore, he just doesn't know anything about what makes this country great. And clearly, he doesn't know what the Constitution says when he was trying to sit there and say, with the relationship of Article 1 being the enumerated powers to the legislative branch of government and the interrelationship that exists with the separations of power, because if you recall, Article 1 creates the legislature. Article 2 creates and enumerates the powers to the executive branch of government, while Article 3 creates and enumerates certain specific powers to the judiciary. Well, he said he was going to protect all sorts of articles, including Article 12. Folks, there are not 12 articles in the Constitution. Well, unless, of course, you believe that you can find it in Article non-section existent Clause 0 right next to the bovine excrement clause. This man has no idea how a free government is to operate. And no, you cannot run the United States of America as a business. No, you cannot use totalitarianism and authoritarianism to properly run the United States of America. It does not work. It didn't work with Herbert Hoover. It really didn't work with Andrew Jackson. It hasn't worked with any other attempted totalitarians who have sought to drastically, fundamentally, and irreparably transform the United States. Now, I'm sure that many of the Lion Branch Trumpidians are going to sit there and say, well, we need that type of overbearing power. We need to infringe upon the Constitution to save the Constitution, to reverse the detrimental harm that Barack Hussein Obama has unleashed upon our once thriving and flourishing representative republic. No, we don't. That's asinine. That is an asinine statement. And it is one that is only going to lead to the further degradation of all that we hold near and dear in this republic. It is ignoring the very foundation of what has made this nation so great in our relatively brief yet illustrious history. And again, that is one of the reasons why I, my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, and our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, have so emphatically taken a stance against the candidacy and nomination of the mafioso, quafioso New York Bulgarian. It's because he has no inkling of what makes this country great. He has no inkling of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people. In his mind, everything should belong to him. All power should rest squarely at his feet. That's why he gets mad when Ted Cruz gets up there and says for people to vote their conscience, something that is quintessentially American. And if you can't say that in a convention, and if that is considered the wrong time to say something, then that shows that this party does not deserve to survive. You see how serious it is? You see how we are really in a fight for the soul and survival and the continuing vitality and viability of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours? Because that is where we are, folks. That is where the mafioso quafioso has placed us, and it shows no signs of improving at any time within the foreseeable future. But again, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, remain committed to our mission statement. We are here to empower the people, folks. We do this program for you. We make this program for you. We take off over the friendly airwaves to provide you this indelible yet pure sense of enlightenment for your empowerment. Because when you have and foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of the United States Constitution and thereby your fundamental and inalienable rights, you have the ability to understand exactly how, where, when, and why these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists are acting in such a way as to attempt to strip and deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. It cannot be allowed to go unfettered like this. We cannot allow the Lion Branch Trumpidians to destroy what makes this country great. And see, that's the whole thing. It shows how they are playing a twisted game of semantics when they abide by that hollow, shallow, meaningless, and empty platitude of "Make America Great Again." They haven't the first inkling as to what makes this country great. They are so deluded. They have been swept into the quaff wafflers mob, the candidacy and campaign built not on a house of cards, but a waffle house, which just cannot be allowed to come to fruition because it cannot stand the first challenge. And do not think that the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media has not been just salivating for this. They've heard the little bell, ringy-dingy-dingy. They think now is the time. And they will take their claws out and they will plunge it into the scarecrow-like body of the mafioso quafioso without mercy. We tried to warn all of the Lion Branch Trumpidians about this for nearly a year now. And again, this candidate, this nominee is the weakest of living memory. He is untenable, unacceptable, and he just is loathed and despised by so many. And why? Because of who he is and how he acts and the disregard that he has not only for the code of cordiality, but for the proper scope and application of government, and with his disregard for the fact that the United States of America is a nation of laws and not of men. And in reality and in truth, that does bring us closer to it being like Hillary. It shows that there really is nothing that distinguishes him in actuality and in point of fact from her high-ass, Thunder Thighs herself. But there we are. That is the untenable situation that we find ourselves in. We are headed into this general election, which is slated for November, in a just disastrous position. We are hopelessly divided. And we need to find something that unifies us. And it cannot be Trump. It cannot be a Trump candidacy. It cannot be a tyranny of false unity. If you want to unify us, you need to start treating us in a dignified fashion and respecting our views towards the Constitution. But no, that's too far above them. It's too far above what Trump is going to do. It's beyond his capability. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And therefore, I really have no words of solace or comfort when it comes to this disastrous freak show that is the so-called Trump train. Because it's not in line with our cherished values. It's not in line with our principles, nor is it in line with our values, nor will it ever be. But the Lion Branch Trumpidians don't care. They want us to just accept him as some sort of greatly businessman when nothing could be further from the truth. America is not a business, cannot be run as a business. In businesses, you don't deal so frequently and so regularly with fundamental and inalienable God-given rights, our civil liberties, our civil rights. Now, I know that doesn't mean anything to Trump, because during his tenure as a businessman, he attempted to violate all sorts of laws on the book just to get his way, irrespective of the harm that it caused to people that were living in those buildings or to their right to keep and hold property, all in violation of the Constitution. And I also know it's not going to matter to him because of the way that he attempted to cheat partners, the way that he attempted to make money off the backs of others without giving them their due share. Yes, he's a businessman, an unethical, seedy businessman. You realize that we have to be virtuous. I know that may seem so out there, so abstract, but it is the God's honest truth that we must stand up for those things that are quintessentially American. And no, that's not some platitude on my part. It's why we have a judiciary. It's why we have a code of conduct. But it seems that far too many have just been willing to cast that by the wayside. Far too many just want to embrace the mafioso quafioso because either they are paralyzed by fear, petrified in the light of Hillary, which really, she's not going to be as powerful as Barack insane Obama, because we will fight her even harder. We know who she is. Or because they literally just want to set a torch to the entire societal fabric of this once vibrant community of popular sovereigns, to destroy our representative Republican form of government, to replace it with what? A cult of personality. I'm sorry, but I have no desire to be a part of that. And I will fight tooth and nail to preserve the God-given rights that were given to me, that were endowed to me and my fellow popular sovereigns. Because that is what our founding fathers expected us to do. And folks, our founding fathers would have been up in arms 10 times already. They would have never allowed this nation to go this far down the path to totalitarianism. And I will trust their wisdom and their foresight in creating the longest contiguous or uninterrupted running constitutional document in the entire course of human events over a thug from New York City. Because what Trump is exhibiting here is not characteristic of a statesman. It's not even characteristic of a decent human being. The way that he attempted to attack anyone who disagrees with him, that is childish, it's petulant, it's ridiculous, and it has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. And it is why we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have been so dedicated to stopping him. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to hear again all the vociferous complaints, well, you don't fight against Hillary that hard. We don't have to. Hillary fights herself. Hillary is not infiltrating us other than through her hired little hitman there in the mafioso quafioso. Because I'm sure, as you recall, back in May of last year, just a few months before he officially threw his quaff into the ring, Donald Trump had a covert and secret telephone little conversation there with Billy Bob Thornton Clinton. Now, does that sound like something a conservative would do? Did Ted Cruz go and call Bill Clinton? No. No, but they forgive all of that, and then they bring up made-up nonsense like that lying Ted Cruz bull crap and try and make that stick. That's propaganda. I hate to tell you this. Well, actually, I love telling you this because you are so blinded by willful animus and hatred that you cannot see the forest despite the trees. But you've fallen for propaganda. Joseph Goebbels would be jumping up and down, clapping with joy, and dancing a jig on his clubbed foot at just how gullible the Lion Branch Trumpidians are. And I hate to say that about any American citizen, because even the Lion Branch Trumpidians carry that flame of Americanism in their heart, that true natural law aspect of us, our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. And you know what? We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, would be on the vanguard defending their rights if anyone tried to take those rights away. Remember, we did that. We did it with Trump. But that does not mean that we are just going to sit idly by while he attempts to hijack the conservative movement, while he attempts to make totalitarianism the new norm in the United States. No. We must go back to the Constitution. We must go back to the fundamental tenets that are contained within its four corners and its clear and concise language, because that is what makes America great. That is what keeps us free. That is why we have been such a long-lived nation. It's not any of this other crap. It's not the economy. It's not the idea of protectionist trade. You know, all of those trade tariffs, that's not going to be beneficial. No, you want to fix the economy? You want to fix trade? Go back to the Constitution. Stop overzealously regulating the American people. Stop trying to use government as a weapon. Because when you do that, that is when you betray all that matters in this country. That is when you unravel everything. That is why we say that the Constitution is the key. And that key has been with us dating back to the inception of this country over 235 years ago. And unless and until we truly embrace that and recognize that as the self-evident truth that faces the United States of America as I sit here and speak into this microphone, then we are not going to be able to place this country back onto the path to prosperity. But I have faith in the true character, heritage, spirit, and identity of the American people, and I know that they will do the right thing. Unlike those who have sold their soul to hop on board the out-of-control Trump train, I have faith in the American people. And with that said, it's time to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back with one last round of alcohol. Please do not boo our flight attendant. She is trying very hard, and I've given her permission to basically throw away the alcohol if she's booed. As always, folks, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. I also invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you may have here on our YouTube page or our Google Plus page or our Facebook page. On top of that, I invite you to follow us on Twitter with the Twitter handle @RadioAviationEX. One more time, folks, that's @RadioAviationEX. And there you will find the departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, the personal Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, our Blogspot account that lists audio blogs that are just chock full of useful information to help guide you to that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our Constitution and your rights. And on top of that, we have the Cafe Press account. Our hats, our clothing, our attire, it looks a lot better than Make America Great Again. Show off your pride and this ability of thinking for yourself with either a shirt, hat, drinking glass for that last round of alcohol with our regular logo on it or our first class passenger logo on it to show others that you think for yourself and that you are proud to be an American. With such a wide array of products at reasonable prices, you are certain to find something that fits the bill for you. So go ahead and take a look and give us a little bit of support and support yourself, folks. As always, thank you for flying the Wright Flyer. We'll see you next time. Do take care.